Good morning, Hallowed Haven family. This is After Dawn, the show where we sit down to have a cup of coffee with the cast, crew, and creators behind the Hallowed Haven Studios productions. I'm Sol, and I'm joined by my co-host, Vironz.
Yes, hello, I'm Vironz, and today we're talking about Hunter Wayfarer Season 2, Episode 2. This week we had a special guest join us, with their character name being Peter. They joined our little ragtag group as they chased around some leads. They taught Arthur about some text message stuff, and finally left Victoria's body behind and unattended. But my opinions are not the only here. What are your thoughts, Saul?
I enjoyed the episode. I really liked being able to see Peter finally come into the fold after all of season one. Rosanna was doing pen pal stuff with him, so it was nice to actually finally be able to put a face to a name. I also just really liked seeing the cell come together to work on puzzle things. Speaking of the cell, we are joined by two members of the cell right now. Hello, Termite and Aubrey.
Hello.
Hello.
So good to have you here. Welcome back, Termite, and welcome to the show for the first time, Aubrey. As you're both playing new characters, could you tell us a little bit about them, maybe a little bit of their backstories in brief, because people want to know who these people are.
Yeah. I guess being the new person here, I can go first.
By all means.
I am Aubrey, and I play Isobel Moran, the mortician. Was kind of her big thing before becoming a hunter. And she's weird, she's gothic, she's spooky, and gets very hyper-focused on puzzles. She kind of... Well, she wasn't kind of, but she is a mortician, and she started noticing people coming in dead bodies with weird causes of death, like pinpricks in the neck, no blood, and eventually started putting two and two together and linked up with the cell at one point before the start of Wayfarer, and has been working with a Second Inquisition cell in California a few times, mostly focusing on kindred related things. So expanding outside of the kindred things and finding the other spooky things in the world has been very interesting for her.
Piper, there is a lot going on behind the scenes, and only some of it is legal. Broad strokes, she's kind of started off as like a hobby hacker, started getting into activism, and as she was doing stuff relating to that, she started noticing... Well, the main thing that brought her into being a hunter is she noticed one person's face over and over again in a bunch of different incidents all over the place. And as she put things together, let's just say, as it turns out, vampires aren't too fond of being found out and aren't afraid to use humans as pawns to blow buildings up.
Spicy.
Incredibly so.
So, what's it like playing as new cast members in a rather established world and in most what's left of an established cell?
It is certainly interesting coming into sort of the established dynamic and figuring out your place in it. It's kind of fun because I've never actually done that before. I've done like one shots, or like I come in to guest on something, and it's kind of like I'm just here for an episode to shake things up and then I'm gone. And it's been a lot of fun, these two episodes, just sort of sitting down and figuring out where does Isobel fit in all of this.
It's definitely been interesting to try and integrate with the group's lack of trust. Uh, because wow, we show up to help and they have just not trusted us with anything, and it's been very difficult. Um, but I think that helps make a more of a fun story to kind of showcase the crew coming together.
Traumatized hunters being cagey? Never.
Could
No, of
never
course not.
happen. Never.
Would never.
What do the playlists look like for Isabel and Piper?
Um, Isabel's playlist is all over, but also kind of has a bit of a theme for sure. Actually, as you said it, I just pulled it up and I'm starting to like scroll through it and look at it. It's a lot of metalcore and things in that vein. I've got some Bring Me the Horizon, Ice Nine Kills. Then I also have things like Paris, Sleep Token, Spirit Box. It's on the harder, darker side with kind of a fun way to sort of see into her twisted way that she sees the world.
Alright.
Well, depending on how curious you are, the Spotify playlists are available on the Hallowed Haven Studios Spotify if you go and find them. Uh, but Piper's playlist is not terribly different. It's a lot of rock, metal, pop punk. Um, it's a lot of angry. 3 Days Grace, Riot, uh, Killing in the Name by Rage Against the Machine. Um, but there's also a lot of kind of not being good enough. Uh, she's got The Middle by Jimmy Eat World, Asking Alexandria's Alone in a Room. Because she's kind of been, I mean, for most of at least her career, she's been kind of out on her own, having to help other people because she's not really competent enough to really do anything out in the field. Um, so it's kind of that combination of anger at like established things, but also worrying that she just isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Alright.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
As we've gone back to playing World of Darkness games again on this studio, in this studio, I should say, what's your favorite product from the World of Darkness line of games?
I am always such a sucker for Vampire the Masquerade.
I believe I answered this a couple seasons ago, but Changeling the Dreaming is uh, very fun to me just because, one, it's so different from everything else. It leans more into that like sense of adventure, but there's obviously still the underlying tone of dear God, everything is wrong and you're fighting for your very existence. Also, fairies are fun.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, it's very noble bright in what would be seen as a very dark setting.
Mm-hmm.
Changeling is always one of those ones that has intrigued me, but I've never actually gotten to play it for myself. So it's like one of those ones where it's like I like the idea of it. I couldn't tell you if I actually like playing it because I've never actually played it.
I'm with you on that one because I've always wanted to try Changeling the Dreaming.
Yeah, because
I've only ever actually played The Lost, which is the new World of Darkness version, which is a lot darker.
Yes, I have issues with the system of Changeling, but that's mostly just because there's too many moving parts, similar to the issues I have with Mage. which I won't get into here because I won't stop talking about it.
Yeah, Mage
That's
is a great system stuck in a really not great package.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll see a change in the 5th edition lineup that they're doing.
I kind of hope
Possibly,
so.
hopefully.
I hope so, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
It has more chance than getting a Mummy 5th edition.
I
Yeah,
mean,
this is true.
yeah.
Mummy is one of those systems that I do forget exists, and then somebody mentions it, and I go, "Oh yeah, that is a thing."
Oh
So
yeah,
do the
that's
people that make the games. Don't worry about it.
no. I think they know it exists. They just kind of set it off to the side, and hope everybody else forgets it exists. That way, people stop asking them about it.
Yeah, all 3 people who actually played it.
Exactly.
Ex-
So, how would you both say that you are similar or different to your characters? How do you compare to them, and how do you kind of contrast from how they are?
Well, I'm certainly not a mortician to start with. um, I do enjoy the goth spooky vibe. It's my general vibe when I feel like I have enough energy to put myself together. But I think Isobel is a lot more pessimistic than I am. Of everything is horrible and it's all going to end horribly. Uh, you know, because Isabel spent all of her time in a morgue or in a funeral home dealing with dead bodies, and I feel like that kind of brings a moroseness to her. It is the whole death is inevitable, and maybe as part of why she became a hunter is death is inevitable, but maybe there are ways to stop it.
Isabel's gonna get hit with a bat by the time this season's over.
Yeah, I definitely am. I'm looking forward to it.
A metaphorical one or a literal one?
Probably
we'll
both.
find out.
That's fair.
Contrary to what it might seem like, unlike Piper, I am borderline technologically incompetent sometimes. But that's mostly just because I have a shitty attention span and can't focus on things long enough to actually learn them.
Yeah, so valid.
But there's, I mean, the playlist is almost all music that I personally either currently do or have resonated very heavily with in the past, just because things happen, and it's really hard to not be angry sometimes, um, especially when it feels like everything is against you.
All right. Do you guys have any thoughts on what might await the cell going forward?
Honestly, I am. There have been a few things that have been a little left field, so I'm very much of the. I'm still theory crafting. I have a lot of out there theories, but like my brain is very much of the. That's probably not going to happen.
I have given BP several loaded guns, and they are all pointed directly at my face.
I always say I say I give a GM 10 knives and tell them to pick 7.
Yeah. I've given things to BP that are going to bite us in the ass. But it's no fun if I share them. Because then that won't be a surprise.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. And Aubrey, it's your first time here. Can you tell us a bit about why you love tabletop RPGs, the character moments, the puzzles, or combat?
Yeah, no. I have kind of always loved tabletop RPGs. My parents actually met playing D&D second edition. So it's kind of been a thing that I've been around all of my life. My parents had like weekly game nights and stuff with all of their friends when I was growing up. And so I spent a lot of time around it and a lot of time just around fantasy and stories. And both my parents are writers. So, I definitely get that from them. And when I was 13, D&D 3rd edition came out. And pretty much all throughout my middle school and high school, my dad ran a campaign for me and my friends.
Well, that's
and
cool.
So it was a years-long campaign, and then I'm just a theater kid through and through. I love performing. I love telling stories. I love getting to be a character and playing out these fun scenarios, rolling the dice, seeing how things go, the emotional moments, the ups and downs. I love it all.
Can't argue with that. I have a question from Scott here, actually. So what's the deal? Why aren't you guys participating in Chicken Finger Fridays?
Because I have no way of acquiring chicken fingers at the moment.
It's a valid answer.
Money.
Yeah.
Simple. It's money.
Very
I'm
simple,
poor.
very valid answers that we can make Scott feel bad with. All right. I think it's about time that we can go ahead and start drinking our hopes and get into the questions about the characters and questions about the past few sessions. Got a question for Termite. Does Piper worry about the ghost in the machine, which may be a little more a literal issue for the cell?
Not really, no. She has very few worries when it comes to what she does online because she's so good at what she does.
Gotta be confident in what you're good at. Fair enough.
All right. I got a question from Legacy. What does Isabel think about being in a cell with actual supernatural abilities? Does she think it will be helpful or harmful to the cell?
Isabel is actually incredibly fascinated by this. She is the kind of person who wants to take notes, wants to study, wants to understand these things, and is trying to be like, these seem very taxing on you. I don't understand it, but okay. Can you tell me exactly what you saw and experienced for research purposes?
Kind of sounds just like she's like 3 seconds away from like actually poking and prodding.
Yeah, she's trying not to. She kind of wants to because she wants to understand it.
I can respect that.
All right. What does Piper think of like the various organizations of hunters? She mentioned some of them briefly in the first session.
Oh boy. So you remember how I mentioned that I gave BP several loaded guns?
Oh boy.
She's currently on the run from at least one organization, because she may or may not have done a bad thing and stolen some information from them and then run
Oh
while she
dear.
was working for them.
Oh yikes.
So needless to say, they're not terribly happy about that.
I'm sure that won't come up. I'm sure it's fine.
No, I definitely don't have an enemy flaw for that very reason.
Yikes.
Long story short, she doesn't like them. She thinks they're grossly incompetent and don't do what they do for the right reasons.
Absolutely fair. Speaking of the organizations, we saw that Isabel had contact who seemed to know a lot about things that go bump in the night. Is that the Second Inquisition contact that you were talking about, the Second Inquisition cell, or is that another independent one?
She early on in her hunter career met a Dr. Allison Langley, who works for the CDC section of like the SI, and so has been kind of working with and sending information to Dr. Langley to like understand and kind of try to scientifically reverse engineer what Kindred can do. That's kind of what Dr. Langley has been working on. And Dr. Langley has other hidden things that Isabel may or may not be helping her out with, but I don't know if that's a thing that's going to come up or not.
It depends on how quickly, or if at all, the group finds out about this. Like
Very
I said, Piper doesn't like the organizations. She doesn't like the people that are part of big groups because, again, grossly incompetent, and they do what they do for bad reasons. Mostly money.
Yeah, there's that.
So Isabel and Piper both have seemed to walked into an absolute mess of what's left of a hunter cell. What are their personal thoughts on the state of the cell of Arthur and Rosanna and the hidden Zephyr and, well, dead Victoria?
I've said it several times. Piper thinks it is a miracle that they're still alive. Mostly Arthur. Especially during that time that he was apparently somehow keeping himself alive. But she definitely thinks that things can be salvaged. It is just going to take a lot of time, and it's going to require them to trust Isabel and Piper a whole hell of a lot more than they currently do, which is potentially in the negatives.
I think it's getting better. You know, they actually told us things that are going on. I'm just going to slowly continue to, like, make checks to see if I notice more and more things. I'm just going to be like, hey, can I make an occult check to see if I notice the weird things that are going on around my friends? Friends, in quotes.
I'm going to just set one of the drones to always follow both of them.
Yeah. I think Isabel is interested because they came to her with a very interesting problem. And Isabel likes problems, likes to solve things, and is fascinated by death is not really the word I'm looking for, but, you know, she does enjoy is also a strong word for it, but it is of the, she does not feel weird around dead bodies because she's around them all the time. So if something is weird about a dead body, she wants to know why and what caused it, and will dig deep and figure out what it is, because just being around the body doesn't weird her out. So it's like, okay, let's figure this out, and brought to her a body that has so many questions about it, and she wants to know why.
All right. So on the like topic of drones that you brought up, we know that Piper has like access to a lot of interesting and impressive tech with her global access and like her scientific method of like sensing the unnatural. What kind of edges does she have?
So Piper has global access and sense the unnatural, which have both come into play, as well as drone jockey. But she also has thwart the unnatural, which has yet to come into play. But it should hopefully come into play, at least part of it, in the next episode. Because that is one of the things she's working on to try and help Rosanna.
All right.
And what about Isobel? We haven't exactly seen much about what she can do with her edges yet.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually come up, but Isabel's creed is entrepreneurial. And I have improvised gear and ordnance for my edges. Improvised gear specifically with the specialization perk for Kindred, and non-lethal munitions for ordnance. And I think a lot of that stuff is going to become a little bit more relevant when we actually start fighting things.
What kind of non-lethal ordnance does she focus on? Because usually ordnance is for like high explosives.
Mm. Like non-lethal munitions, especially like if you're dealing with supernatural, sometimes you need to contain regular people. So it's things to, deal with regular people. And then also one of her big things is specifically trying not to kill things that she wants to study. Which may or may not be cause problems in the end, but a lot of times if she can study a thing and doesn't understand it, she wants to study the living body before she studies the corpse.
All right.
That's fair. Speaking of studying these supernatural entities, have Isabel or Piper actually run into any other supernatural beings aside from vampires and, well, Rosanna?
Piper has only had physical contact with a single vampire ever. And it's the one that she has a very personal vendetta against now. Everything else has been purely digital, and if she ever even suspected that something was coming after her, she fucking ran.
Yeah, Isabel's really only encountered Kindred because she was working with the Cell, and the Cell pretty early on, from what I remember, only dealt with Kindred until they accidentally tried to blow up a werewolf. And other than that, she worked a lot with the Second Inquisition, and they mainly focus on Kindred. So I think she's aware of certain other things existing, like werewolves. She did learn about raids. That's a new one for her, but very much aware was werewolves existed and that you should stay very, very, very far away from them. They're even more dangerous than Kindred are. And she's got decent physical stats. So she's actually done some field work before and helped out on a couple of jobs for the SI.
All right. So we're going to move on to our spilling the tea segment. The section's a bit freeform with questions tailored towards like the WTF moments of the episode, some controversies and rumors, maybe hints of love interests. So in this section, we'll invite you guys to ask each other any pressing, hard questions that you might have, or to ask us what to ask other people that we interview. So, and for our first one, to just get things started, why does Piper always wear aviators?
So you remember that thing I mentioned about her having thwart the unnatural?
Yeah.
She has a little device integrated with them. That is how she uses that. It also gives her a little dossier on the inside of the lenses when she uses it. So that is why she always wears them.
All right.
Very nice. I was wondering if it was just like she was trying to use them to hide her identity a little bit more.
No.
Fair. Is there a reason aside from aesthetics that Isabel colors her hair all the time? Because they mentioned in the first episode that Arthur had seen Isabel with differently colored hair than when he saw her now.
I think it's like an aesthetic, for sure. being of there's always that, I always think of that fun Twitter post of some horrible person online talking about like brightly colored hair being some sort of like horrible thing for people to have, and I always love playing characters with brightly colored hair, and I personally have like, I change my hair color all the time, and there is also like leaning into just the gothness of just having the green hair or something, all the black clothing, and the off-puttingness, because I always try to lean into the off-puttingness of her appearance, because I may or may not have a unseemly aura for Isobel, and so she always just like, she's weird, and she's her own brand of weird that only she understands and doesn't really care if no one else understands.
All right.
This does actually kind of bring up a question for me, if you're willing to talk about it, Aubrey.
Yeah.
So it has been mentioned, and I also know this because I've been given one. But are there any flaws or merits that you've been given outside of character creation, or that
Yeah.
you're trying to keep secret?
I mean, no, this actually plays into something that Isobel really leaned into last episode. Last time we played, I was given a merit from BP. It was called Coldly Logical.
Yep.
It some might refer to you as a cold fish. You have a knack for separating factual reporting from emotional or hysterical correlation. You may or may not be emotional yourself, but you can clearly see when others are clouding the facts of their feeling. And it's a -1 difficulty on all related rolls.
Nice.
So I also look forward to when I get some flaws, because that's going to be interesting.
Oh, same.
So I actually kind of have a question for both of you. We've talked a little bit about how you came into being, how Isobel and Piper came into being hunters, and how they came to understand that there are vampires in the world. What are their actual thoughts on vampires aside from just they're dangerous?
I think I'm going to let Aubrey take this one first.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, vampires are incredibly dangerous, but also incredibly fascinating. She may or may not be trying to collect like vampiric ash or vampiric vitae for study and or testing. And maybe working on something to do with that. And I've made the joke, but and I don't remember if this is on air or not, but Isobel has the envy drive. And so there was a quote that I was thinking of when I was creating Isobel, and I've really leaned into it. It's where is it? I wrote it down. It is from Frankenstein. It was, I was born for something greater than I was, and greater I would become. And I think that's really the trajectory for Isobel, is she wants to become something greater. And this is her route to do it. And she's going to make a lot of mistakes and horrible choices along the way in pursuit of this, but I look forward to it.
All right.
Piper's feelings are very straightforward when it comes to vampires, especially. She fucking hates them. She blames them for a lot of political issues. As I mentioned, she's a bit of an activist, by which I mean she's a pretty major activist and has done a lot of things. And it kind of started once she put things together with her first encounter. She started kind of connecting the dots and realizing that maybe not most, maybe not even a significant number, but there are quite a few government decisions, organizations, massive corporations, stuff like that, run or at least controlled from the shadows by kindred or similar creatures. And she wants to get rid of them almost entirely because of that.
Okay.
Makes sense. So, aside from fear of werewolves, what about other beings? Like, what are their feelings on wraiths, for example?
Well, I think for Isabel, it is. She's just learned that, like, really learned that wraiths are a thing. She's probably that spooky kind of goth that was like, yeah, ghosts are a thing. But like wraiths, learning about them, yet again, it's a lot of fascination of trying to understand how this thing exists. And sort of what is like, what are their purposes? Like, what is their purpose? Like, so I'm looking forward to just Isabel learning about all of the weird supernatural things out there and wanting to study them.
Yeah, Piper doesn't really have strong feelings on other kinds of supernatural. Um, yeah, werewolves are very much outside of her domain because they tend to stick more towards wilderness. And she hasn't really had any sort of contact with anything else. I mean, she suspects that other things exist because, I mean, if fucking vampires exist, then why not ghosts? But she doesn't particularly fear or worry about anything else because she hasn't had a reason to yet.
Okay. You guys have like any questions that you want to like ask Scott and Legacy,
Or us?
or us too?
I'm kind of interested on what everybody's like thoughts are on the new characters. Like, what do they think about like the new introductions to the group or anything? I don't know if that's been answered already, but
Yeah, especially from the outside, like knowing as little as they do about backstory stuff. Like how do they as players and how do Rosanna and Arthur feel? And how do the viewers feel, like directed at you two?
Well, I will need to gather general opinion on that. Gonna have to ask people in general.
As for my own personal opinion, I am always a fan of seeing new people come in because I always just like seeing new characters, seeing new players, and seeing how they interact with and affect an established world. That's why I always like in all kinds of shows where SPCs come in and they manage to change the world a little bit for the players or change the players and their characters a little bit, and then they get to leave, and then we get to see how they react. And seeing new players who are able to do that more consistently is always just a treat for me. I just like seeing how other kinds of viewpoints and other kinds of thought processes and characters change established canon and established worlds.
I mean, I'm coming at this from the position of having edited and listened to your guys' point fives. I really enjoyed these introductions that you guys got, and I love like listening to more and more and like learning more about you guys. I always have fun just listening to these like new characters, or even the characters on our other shows from like when I started, because I started during Scion, and then we moved over to Chill, and now we're back to Wayfarer, and it's just been an incredible ride so far of just like learning about our players, the characters, the storytellers. It's been great, and you guys have just been an amazing addition so far.
Thank you. It has been a lot of fun to come in and tell this story so far. I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great to come in and cause problems for established characters.
Yeah,
I always kind of see new players and like new SVCs as kind of being like, oh, we have this canon, but now we're gonna see how we can mess it up or change it up or intensify everything, and then just letting it play out. Kind of like taking a kid to their grandparents, and the grandparents stuff them up with sugar before they're sending them home.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. I guess I want to ask, is anyone else really suspicious about Peter?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm suspicious of everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all of this happens, and is it a ploy to take us away? Was it a ploy to take us away from the body? That happened at that point?
Yeah. As you may have noticed, Piper is extremely paranoid because she's on the run from powerful vampire, the Hunter organization, and the whole ass federal government.
I couldn't imagine that, what with the spy drones all the time.
Yeah, she doesn't have a dark secret flaw for any reason.
Yeah, no, and it was just like it was. I don't think Isobel is currently incredibly suspicious because she was given a task to investigate things, and so has been doing that. And I wasn't rolling very well on my 2 notice things. And also, Isobel doesn't know everything that happened in season 1. Doesn't know what this organization is, like I, who listened to all of season 1, does. So it's just like, yeah, that's moths. Your point. It's pretty moths that are on our thing, but moths. It's nighttime. We're in the south, so somebody's got to like get her up to speed on what these mean.
Yeah, that was Piper's whole thing of just, oh, there are moths. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's weird that there's this many of them, but also I built Piper to be as suspicious as possible because she's a shady little bitch that does a lot of highly illegal things.
I couldn't tell, for one.
She has no dots and resources. How do you think she got all of her computer equipment?
Yikes.
Yeah, Isobel is just, as I have said, is a little goth creature.
Yeah, little goth creature.
And I actually look forward to actually like having Isobel fight, because like I actually have a decent number of dots. And after listening to how nobody in season 1 had like any physical skill, and how badly all of their physical altercations till the very end of the season went. End of the season they pulled it through, but like beginning of the season, woof.
Yeah, I'm considering giving Piper some melee because she's got decent dexterity already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to lean into the dexterity firearms, as Isobel's probably gotten some firearms training from the Second Inquisition.
Well, just a bit of rules learning here. You have to remember that firearms actually go off of composure.
Composure. My composures and dexterity are pretty
Which,
good.
as we discovered in this last episode, the entire cell has at 3.
Yeah. Yeah, we all have 3 composure. It does. I get confused sometimes because I play in a home VTM game where sometimes it's both, or like either or. It's depending on which.
It can be sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
It also
just depends on the situation.
Or strength.
Never intelligence, though.
You don't
I'll
need
find a
to
way.
tell them.
That's if you're trying to do trick shots.
I will find a way. I have a 4 intelligence. I will find a way for
Same.
Isabel to use intelligence firearms.
I'm glad we came in as the two very different kinds of super intelligent people.
Yeah, I think the group needed it.
Because yeah, there's Isabel, who's super like medically and occult minded.
Mhm.
And then there's Piper with her 3 dots in science and technology.
I also have 3 dots in science.
Piper's got engineering spec.
I have a chemistry spec.
Oh, dude, together we can blow some shit up.
Exactly.
Thought
And
I
now
wasn't
we're
the only
waiting for
one
the
thinking
session where-
pipe bombs.
Yeah, I was saying we're going to wait for the session where they make bathtub Semtex.
See.
It'll happen.
I mean, I've also got an academic spec in architecture, so we can probably use that to blow some buildings up too.
Hell yeah.
Did they make hunters or anarchists? Who knows?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
That was entirely what I was going for.
Fair enough. The answer is yes.
I have it on record as Piper causing at least 3 riots in her life.
Those are rookie numbers. Got to crank those up a little bit.
Exactly.
She's only 26.
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time. Piper sounds like, even though she hates vampires, she would make one hell of a bruja.
Oh, that's another thing that I put together in. It might have been the first episode. There is a very solid chance that she is closely connected with a whole shit ton of Bruja and Nosferatu,
Yeah.
Without even knowing it.
just because of who she is and what she does.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of hoping to run into a Hakata.
No, please no.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Man, am I glad that Piper is getting Ward. It's gonna be great. I look forward to when we actually deal with supernatural things and they completely fuck us up.
Exactly. It is going to be fun. I look forward to that, and whatever. I think we might get some fighting next session, just with the way things ended.
It's very possible.
I have personally no idea what I want to spend my experience on. I should probably like flesh out some of my like edges and perks because I don't have a lot.
I have I have so many perks.
I spent more on like upping my stats and skills and buying some advantages and flaws.
Yeah, I've got 4 edges, like I mentioned, and I think 3 of them. Well, one of them has 2 perks, another has 3, and the last one has 4.
Yeah, it was in the end. It was like I was coming in. I didn't know exactly what people had, so I didn't like build too many edges because I didn't want to build into essentially a build that already exists.
Yeah. Hey, listen, there's a lot you can do with ordnance.
Yeah, I'll pick up some of the other perks. They're not that expensive.
No, they're what, 3 each?
3 each, and I have enough experience to pick up another one.
I should go expend my experience too.
I've got 4 experience, so you know, I haven't been able to do any of my desires or ambitions yet.
I have 9.
I also I think I exactly spent all of the experience that BP gave us to start.
Also,
Actually,
we're massively off topic. We should kill the bot.
Yeah. Well, it was fun. It was actually kind of fun to listen into you all planning. It's fun to listen to the thought processes. But I do think that it is a good time for us to go ahead and wrap it up there. So I would like to go ahead and thank everyone for listening in. These episodes are dropped Thursdays at noon for the $5 plus tier on the Patreon. They're released to the public a month later, so think about subscribing so you can be up to date with your talk news for Hallowed Haven Studios. I'm Sol, and this has been After Dawn. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.